What did the different rooms look like? How were they decorated?
Right, they varied according to which block they were in. They weren't like wards, they were all separate houses and bungalows, and each one was decorated a bit differently to match the type of people who were in it, because you'd have the children's wards, which were nice and bright and colourful, and then you'd have the bigger villas that were a bit big and tall ceilings, so they didn't look quite as nice, but they were all decorated very differently. And those ones that had smaller rooms, the people themselves were able to choose some of the decorations.
Did you stay there, or you went home during the week?
I went home every night. Okay, the occupational therapy department was like a great big aircraft hangar or factory. It was just like a factory unit, very big, with, I think it was a corrugated metal roof, because the rain used to hammer on it sometimes. But then it was divided up, it was partitioned up into smaller units, and each unit was for a different reason. So we had offices at one end, the OT and the physio offices were at one end, and then there was a kitchen which was laid out like a little flat, so there was a little bedroom in it and a kitchen area, and a bathroom area, so we could do lots of those sorts of activities with the residents. And then all the other partitions, one was the art room, and you can imagine that was very messy. It was paint and pottery all over the place, and then other rooms that would have, the partitions were small, we'd have about 15 people in a group, I think, and there'd usually be a big table that people would sit around to do the activities. And then down at one side was the industrial therapy area, which was, again, you'd get about 8 or 9 people in each unit, and they'd sit at benches. And then right at the bottom was a woodwork room, and a big area where we could have parties and singing and dancing. Every Friday we used to have a social afternoon on a Friday that everybody could join in. Okay, the old building of the hospital, the original building, was used for television programmes, and Publicum shot some episodes using the front of the building. I don't think they ever came into the building, but in some of those very early episodes you could see the building. And then behind were the old wards, which were big 2-storey buildings, and then we had bungalows further around, which were for the younger children, and also people who were physically handicapped and needed to be kept on the level. Yeah, but it grew, and there was a school at one time as well, which was just like an ordinary junior school. It was just an old building, rather like the school in my village now, and it had its own teachers, and all the children went to school there as well.
And I was on Plum Road.
Yes.
And I was went there for a couple of years, and then I went to Ash.
To the Ash.
They moved me to Ash.
Okay.
It was lovely on Ash.
Yeah, you liked it there. Why did you like it on Ash, June?
Well, like Fern, but it was a bit big. And,
June, can you remember what your bedroom was like at the hospital? Were you on a ward, or were you in one room on your own?
Well, on Ash, I was on the... what was her name, the diabetic? Do you remember?
How many was in your room with you, June? When you was you on a ward with lots, or was you just 2 of you? Or?
It was about, I say only 14.
How many was in your room though? How many beds were in your room?
Quite a lot. The ward next door, they had men, of course.
The ward next door.
It was intermixed. It was like, it's lovely on Ash. And you used to go to this white building, didn't you, in Ely?
The white building.
And we used to have our dinners and teas there.
So you'd go to a building to have your dinners and teas. So everyone had their dinners and teas together, did they? At the same time?
Dinner time, tea time. Because supper time we went over to Ash, you see. It was to go to breakfast there, and dinner time, and went back to Ash for tea then.
Yeah.
And we all had it on Ash, you see, tea.
Did you sit at a table, or what did you do?
Sat at the table.
You sat at a table with your tea.
All the other residents sat.
And they already sat, were they?
All you used to watch the telly, of course, in the day room. You used to watch telly programmes.
What was in the room, June? Was there anything else that you could do in that day room?
There was chairs you could sit on,
Yeah.
watch the telly. And of course they had this big room.
Yeah.
Used to play table tennis, badminton.
Badminton, right. Anything else?
And darts.
When you lived in Ely Hospital, what was your bedroom like?
But one cupboard. You had one cupboard. I had one cupboard. I had one cupboard to put my clothes, my jumpers in, and I had one. It's 2 doors to put your coats in. I was sharing with one of my mates, one of my friends.
Was your bedroom on a ward? What was it like?
It was 2 dormitories with a door, and it had the door and 2 dormitories and the toilet and the bathroom.
Where did you sleep in Ely Hospital? Did you sleep?
And all the bed sharing, I didn't like it.
All right.
I have to share with them.
So you were in a big shared room?
Yeah.
A dormitory?
Yeah. And I didn't like it.
Did you get a choice about what ward you went on or anything?
Fern, you know, Fern.
Yeah. Did you choose that ward?
Yeah. But I'm glad I'm out of there now.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
Because in those days the doors were locked, so I was placed in this area, and I said, "You're the new nursing assistant," and I was sort of pushed through the door and told basically to get on with things. So again, I was frightened to come in, and frightened when I was down the end there, and I couldn't go anywhere because I was locked in a sense, and I had to care for 6 of the residents. You know, coming back to my first day, when I first came in, there was iron bars around on the windows. There was all these high walls, and I thought it was to keep the residents in. But the reality was to keep the people out, because we had more people trying to break into the hospital and pinch cars and break into the walls and pinch television sets and clothes and all that type of thing from the Ely estate. So there's a lot of misinformation, you know. The reality, I guess, was somewhat different. A lot of the residents there, we had a lot of connection with the church because the church was next door. So people tried to impress, I forget the name of the reverend there.
In fact, they wouldn't let me go over to the psychologist's office to work in his office, because he worked in the new building in the rehabilitation block, like, you know, because they said I'd be put on. so I had to sort of stay in the general office, like, you know, but and they had to come to me with any work. Yeah. But it really was, it was lovely there. Like, the community itself was cut off from Ely. You know, I mean, I don't suppose there were many people who went there other than those who were visiting or staff. It was just self-sufficient, and it had its own school later on, like, you know.
When you talk about a couple of residents having the freedom of Ely, do you mean that they could just walk about freely?
Oh, yes.
And do as they liked throughout the grounds?
It was just a home to them.
Right.
You know, that, I mean, a lot of them wouldn't have been able to walk about, you know.
So how many people were you on the dorm with? Can you remember?
About 120.
Really? That's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. All girls and boys in different wards.
John, how did you used to get around the hospital? Did you, because obviously you're visually impaired.
No, one of the boys used to take me about and walk me about.
Right. One of the
around
nurses
the
or
Erin Court.
volunteers?
No.
One of the
The
residents?
staff were all inside. There were 10 patients.
Again, I was very passionate about, I was helped write a Bill of Rights where people should have choice of their rooms, the colours, and that they should have a lockable space. And this was the time before human rights and people first and advocacy wasn't around. And so to fight for these things, which were everybody outside took for granted, it was a really big issue to say that somebody should have their own room, that should be able to choose their own colour and things like that. It came a lot later on in my time at Ely Hospital, really, but we had to fight for it, really. It reminded of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something like that, you know, where you saw those, and then there's another film as well, a British one, where you see all the beds along the corridors, you know, along the side of the walls, and that's the sort of thing it was, yeah.